And so let me begin. There's no room for mercy in the natural world. Predatory animals kill to live. And if the prey need to live, they have to stop these predators from doing so. This has led to a series of adaptations on the parts of the prey. And this causes arms races, and the predators, of course, have to kill to live, and they won't let the prey get away with this. So adaptation after adaptation piles on, and animals change and evolve to keep killing each other or getting away. A great example of arms races is between ants and termites. Ants and termites are hugely abundant, hugely successful, hugely diverse, and ants are some of the most important predators of termites. Termites will do anything they can. This is Macrotermes. It gets huge, has huge mandibles to stop itself from the ants that still are able to eat it. I'm going to talk to you now about my study, which is on a certain interaction between a certain ant and a certain termite. And these are Eceton burchellii and Nasutotermes. Both of these are pretty famous and pretty important insects. Nasutotermes is one of the most successful genera of termites out there. If you live in Florida, you might know it as the termite that's destroying your house. But they're also very common in the tropics where I studied them. They're mostly herbivorous and detritivorous. They eat live and decaying plants. They build nests in trees. And they have powerful chemical defenses. These defenses are adapted to defending themselves against ant predators. And what they do is they have a certain soldier caste. They live in large colonies. Like if you imagine it could be a colony or ant colony. The termites have colonies too. They're also social insects. And they have a special type of caste that's the soldier that defends the colonies. And they have this organ on their head that shoots out this glue chemical several times their body length that binds up ants and poisons them and can kill them and work without even ever making contact. So let's switch gears for a second to Eceton burchellii, which is the neotropical swarm-raiding army ant. This ant, which has colonies of numbering in the hundreds of thousands of individuals. An ant colony of these weighs like 33 odd pounds or something. I've read once. And they eat quarts of invertebrates every day. And they'll eat whatever. They eat mostly other ants, actually, and they'll eat scorpions, huge insects, way bigger than most ants can eat. But they won't eat termites. So why? It could be that the termites are just separated from them by habitat. In other ant-termite pairings where the ants don't eat the termites, it's hypothesized that the termite nest defenses are protecting these termites. It could be chemical invisibility. Eceton burchellii has over 300 species associated with it. That it's that big of a deal in the forest that many animals have evolved just to specialize on having an association with it. And one strategy that many of these animals take is disguising their chemicals so they could just forage along without being smelled by the ant and then avoid being eaten. So the termites could be doing this. The termites could be just fending off the ants. As I said, they have a powerful defense. And maybe when the ants attack, they're just able to drive them away. Or it could be this in conjunction with the fact that the ants are now avoiding the termites. If these termites were my size, I would avoid them too. So some studies have looked into this, some but few. William Morton Wheeler, in 1936, he was a preeminent ant scientist of the early 20th century, noted literally in a footnote that Eceton burchellii would avoid Nasutotermes termites, and the people he ate lunch with or whatever agreed with him. So this got revisited almost 80 years later by myself and my colleagues on the FSP, and we found that we could not feed these termites to the ants no matter how hard we tried. No matter how hard we tried. And moreover, when we crushed up the termites and took their chemicals, we found that the same avoidance behavior that we saw and that William Morton Wheeler described was elicited just by the chemicals alone. And so the next year's FSP came back to this, and they found that this not only did the chemicals seemed to repel them, but it didn't matter the cast of termite that was involved. So only the soldiers have this defense that I was talking about, the glue cannon head. But they're avoiding the workers too, which just, they've got mandibles, they can bite you or whatever. So my questions are how valid are our previous studies? All three of these studies over the past century have had pretty small sample sizes. And although they've been showing cool things, they haven't been extremely conclusive. So is there really a chemically mediated avoidance response in these termites, to these termites by the ants? Does the cast influence it? In many other ant-termite associations, we do see that the ants avoid the soldier termites with the defenses, but they avoid them in order to get to the workers, or they attack the soldiers specifically to disable them and eat the workers. But this cast-independent avoidance seems to be unique. And how much of the avoidance that we see in the field, where the ants are leaving the termites or not attacking them, is actually the ants detecting the termites and then choosing not to attack them, and how much of it is them being driven away by the termites attacking them? So I tested this by going to Costa Rica and conducting a series of field manipulations where I would go to foraging Eceton burchelli into the hundreds of thousands of ants on the ground, and either taking termite chemicals, which I would put on a Q-tip and put in, or whole termites and putting them in and then recording them and measuring their behavior. So I had two main types of experiments for this. One was the chemically mediated avoidance experiment, where I took cotton swabs and put different chemicals on them, put them in the ants, videotaped, measured behavior. I'll describe both of these more later. And the other one was termite introduction, where I would take whole termites and either live or dead and put them in to the ants, videotape them, and see what the role of the termites' defensive behavior was on promoting this response. So I conducted my research in La Selva Biological Station in Costa Rica, which is a tropical lowland wet forest. This is actually a Palaveria station where I found no ants, but this is a good picture of me collecting termites. This is the process. I would just break open a piece of the nest, suck them up with a mouth-powered aspirator. So for my chemically mediated avoidance experiment, I took termites, which were either, I rubbed cotton swabs in different insect treatments, put them in, and I videotaped. And I recorded the probability that the ants would bite these cotton swabs based on the different treatments that I treated them with. And so the treatments were either a worker termite, see, you can see it has a bigger head, this is just for eating, that's just the head, or a soldier termite, which is the glue cannon. And those were two of my treatments. I would crush those up alive prior to crushing onto the cotton swab, put them in. Or I would use a cicada, which is just another potential prey item that doesn't have any sort of defenses within it of this sort. Or I would just leave them blank. And so, as I said, I took video, so here you are. This is the control swab, which I left blank. So these ants are total carnivores. They don't eat plant material, but for some reason they really like to attack Q-tips. So this is what happens when I crush soldier termites and rub them into the Q-tip prior to the introduction. So I took the bright probability, which I calculated as by counting the number of ants that passed within a body length of the cotton head of the Q-tip, counting the number of those ants that bit the cotton head, and I took a ratio, and that was bite probability. And so then I compared that to the treatment that I treated each of these cotton swabs with, and I got these results. So this is the control blank swab that I showed you the first video of. This is the cicada probability, which was not significantly different from the control. But both the soldier and the worker termite treatments were significantly lower than the control in bite probability. So if I rubbed any type of termite we saw a significantly decreased probability that the ants are going to bite these Q-tips. So we did see the avoidance that was observed in these previous experiments. And I used the cicada to make sure that it just wasn't that putting an insect on a Q-tip makes it smell less like a delicious Q-tip or whatever is going on with this. So it is attributable to the termite chemicals. So then next I investigated the role of the termites' defensive behavior in contributing to this avoidance response that we saw in previous studies. And so, as I said, termite glue is sticky, poisonous, ant repellent. It's powerful. And how much of the avoidance we saw before is ants avoiding the termite chemicals like we saw in this experiment, and then how much of it is contributed to by the termites attacking the ants and just getting them away. So the way I did this was I collected soldier termites. After collection, I took some of these termites and froze them in order to kill them to remove their behavior, but keep their cuticular hydrocarbons, which are their identifying chemicals on their outside, intact. So I had a dead termite treatment, dead termites, live termite treatment, live termites, and a control, which is a grain of rice. And I used a half grain of uncooked rice because it was about the size of a clump of 5 termites, which is what I used. And as I said, they don't eat plants. Here's some rice. Rice, camera, action.